Hello and welcome to another episode of Cavell's Cloud Conversations podcast. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Patrick Watson, Head of Research at Cavell Group, and we are building up to one of our flagship events of the year, Cavell Enable, which takes place on the 3rd of December in London. And one of the topics and key themes around the event that we get sort of increasing questions about are the communication challenges that service providers face in the new world of collaboration-enabled technology, and the rising prevalence and relevance of platforms such as Microsoft Operator Connect and how that's transformed the landscape for service providers, but also created a set of challenges which those service providers and operators have to overcome. So today I have a suite of special guests, and I'm joined by the Pinco team. Ian Cooper, Chief Strategy Officer. Afternoon, morning, Ian.
Hi, Patrick. Afternoon. We're all in the UK, so it's all good.
Oh, good. Well, who knows what time anyone's listening to this? It could be in the middle of the night. We've also got Andy Gibson, Chief Product Officer. How are you, Andy?
Hey, good. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks for having us on.
And last but by no means least, Jason Dackins, Head of Sales for EMEA at PingCo. How are you, Jason?
Good. Thank you, Patrick. It's great to be here.
Thank you all for coming on. So I think, first of all, it's probably worth, Jason, if you wouldn't mind, could you just give us a bit of an introduction for anyone who might not know PingCo, please?
Yep, sure. So PingCo are a new, vibrant company focusing primarily on the full automation, provisioning and management across all the UCaaS platforms out there. So we automate the likes of Microsoft Teams, whether that's Teams for Mobile, Operator Connect, Zoom, WebEx, and a number of other UCaaS platforms. So in a nutshell, at the lowest basic level, we provide all the number management, the automation, and the provisioning across those platforms. That's called TCAP, which is our telco calling automation platform. Coupled with that, then we've got something called Service Hub. Now, Service Hub enables all the automation and provisioning of value-added services. So to make things really easy for the operators and the enterprises, if you've already got your team solution out there, by a simple click of a button, you could bring in new value-added services, whether that's call recording, contact centers, analytics. So services can be added very easily to the platforms. And I think that addressed one of the key things that you had in a recent survey, where I think the operators were saying 45% of the respondents were saying that future revenue drivers is through value-added services. So we want to make that easy to bring across all the UCaaS platforms. I think that's it in a nutshell.
There's a couple of really interesting points you mentioned there, Jason. Firstly, that more and more operators that we speak to are carrying a multi-vendor platform. You know, they aren't just going to have a Microsoft or a Cisco platform. They're going to be using multiple UCaaS providers. That's key. And the point you make around value-added service, absolutely, that we've seen in our research. Traditional revenue and margin streams around numbering and minutes are diminishing for operators. So I suppose value-added services with your Service Hub is one of the key things that you're getting a lot of questions about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're partnering with more and more companies in that area. You'll see some announcements at the Cavell event in London in early December. So we'll be making some announcements there. Come across to our booth, you'll see some demonstrations on that. So that's definitely an area that we're investing in and we've seen a lot of demand for.
And I know, as you said, so you'll be gold sponsors Enable, which is the second plug, 3rd of December in London. And Andy, I know that you'll be on stage for the PingCo keynote during Enable. So I was without stealing too much of your thunder and revealing any secrets ahead of time. Can you give us a sort of sneak preview of what you'll be talking about during your keynote?
Yeah, absolutely, Patrick. So really what we want to touch on generally is our interpretation of go-to-market and more importantly, where PingCo sits in alongside the operators to help enhance that. And it's really our opinion that a go-to-market is not a straightforward A to Z journey. It's more of a cyclical, almost infinitely looping approach that doesn't necessarily have a start and should hopefully never have an end. So we can jump on at any point in the cycle. But if I try to run through some of the the milestones for it, we look at this from a perspective of awareness. So how are your customers finding you? How do we consult with you around that? Then once they've found you, what can they do with you immediately? So how can they start evaluating and considering your services? How do we remove all the pain points around that as well? It's all well and good knowing that you found something better, more efficient, more affordable perhaps, but where are those potential roadblocks across the user community, across the stakeholders? Where's the reticence to change, and how do we start knocking down those barriers as well? And it's really at that point where we start looking at traditional onboarding activities. Really, how do we minimize those pain points, remove those barriers, ensure things like service continuity, and make everyone happy, so we can enhance. So when we look at activation at that point, then we are catering for things like that. It's okay, how do we make this resilient and less resistant, but how do we also add further value? So we're not just looking at numbers here, we're looking at users, we're looking at infrastructure, we're looking at ecosystems, how we bring all that together to ensure that our customers have a truly rounded portfolio. Then Jason's already talked to Service Hub at high level. That's massively strategic for us, because as the market's evolved more and more over the last few years, we've seen the customers become more and more demanding and more solutions be brought to market. We want to ensure that doesn't cause more and more confusion, more and more problems. And we really want to ensure that our operators have the solutions to be able to take painlessly to their customers, to adopt and to grow. Because at the end of the day, when you start entering the last corner of the mile that I'll start to share when at the Cavell event, you'll see we move into things like retention and migrations. So what do you know about your customers? If their strategy pivots at all, how are you protected against that? How do you retain their business? And how do you continue to grow that business? And we're right back to the beginning that I said didn't exist, but it's where I started this around awareness. We're growing. How do your customers know they can continue that? And on and on and on we go.
But you talk about the knowing your customers piece, and I know you've been doing a lot of work there, and I wanted to come back onto that. But I suppose you've highlighted, and we've done lots of research about the sort of key challenges that operators are facing. And you mentioned there, and this is, I think, Cavell, we can be guilty of that. It's all very well for us to say you should have a very rounded portfolio with a wide range of value-added services to sort of augment revenue and margin streams. Sometimes it's a lot easier to say that than actually implement it, Andy, in terms of what's being covered in that portfolio.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, one of the things we're looking to introduce in the new year will be a new platform we call TCAP Insights. Insights is really geared towards driving meaningful data from and for the customer. Right? So give you an example there. How do we recognize true customer penetration? What is actual account penetration versus potential? So I've worked in organizations in the past where I know we've sold subsets of the business and it's looked successful. But then when you look at what the wider potential of that could be, how do we gain that? How do we actually recognize the true potential of that account? And we do that by using data that is accessible, right? We can combine multiple data sources and multiple UCaaS platforms and combine that not just at a company perspective. So I can tell you that as an operator, this customer does this, right? But we can also combine that across a general market layer to say, when we're profiling customers and you want to look at potential margin analysis for a new market, well, this is data-backed information. My examples I always use, what a French pharmaceutical sales department use is markedly different to what an Argentinian manufacturer's HR department may use. Well, how do you know that when that's a new market you're expanding into? That's the sort of data we can provide access to, guidance around, again, data-driven information. That's the growth potential. We look at risk management here as well. So we look at what your customers are using. It's easy for an operator to traditionally look at that from a perspective of they were doing X million minutes a month at this time in life and X 100,000 here. Where's the gap? Where's the delta come from? What's influenced that? So from a risk management perspective, you look at what other services were introduced into the ecosystem. classic Microsoft example, they're using calling plans today, and they've started using direct routing. And I've deployed Operator Connect, and then a direct routing SBC comes into the equation. And we can see the different minutes while maintaining privacy for the customer. We're not looking at exploiting information here. We're looking at guiding information. But really, the key messages we want to really drive home around insights is one of actual account penetration versus potential. And two, what other services a customer may be consuming, evaluating, or even have a need for, again, tying back to the potential, the opportunity facet of it all. How usage patterns start to deviate regionally, so country to country, continent to continent, horizontally and vertically, and how that data can be used to provide meaningful data-driven quotes and margin analysis. And if all that information is known within an operator, how far is that information known? Our sales, our account management, our operations, all armed with this data so they can use it for their own benefit and ultimately to the customer's benefit to make sure there's a competitive landscape available for them.
Yeah, and I think that's always been one of the key challenges for operators, especially, and we talk about it as if they're going to have one necessarily unified single system, but it's often across disparate systems, different enablement methods, to Jason's points, across sort of different UCaaS platforms. So that data-driven insight, I think, is something that could be massively helpful across that. So if we're talking about those sort of capabilities post-deployment, Ian, during the event, you'll be appearing on one of my panels, which will obviously be one of the most popular,
one of the better ones. Yeah,
exactly that. And looking at both onboarding on these platforms and to both the sort of points that Andy and Jason have made of how to succeed post-onboarding. One of the pieces of information that came back from the recent Operator Connect research that we've conducted was about some of the key challenges that operators were facing. And one of the key ones was around automation. And Ian, I know that's something that since you've been at PingCo that you've been really focusing on. So can you talk about how much of a challenge that automation is for operators and some of the benefits that if you can truly automate provisioning and management and delivery, what a difference that might be able to make for an operator on say Operator Connect as an example, but I know you do it across Zoom or WebEx.
Yeah, I mean, automation, as Jason said at the start, really is our DNA. It's where we've come from. It's where we focus on. It's where we excel. And, it's not around just the platform or what the platform does. It's about looking at that holistically for the customers as an end-to-end journey. And when I say customers, I mean our customers are carrier customers, and I'm meaning their end customers, so the enterprise customers that they serve, and we help the carriers serve them more effectively. And I think what we've seen in terms of onboarding, it depends on the level of integration you are working to. We've had some carriers, tier ones that we're working with, like on Teams Phone Mobile, where we've done an end-to-end integration journey, including billing, provisioning, tooling, support, maintenance, everything. Or like a lighter touch automation where it's maybe number management, number upload, things like that, API integration into Microsoft, as you mentioned about Operator Connect. But I think the key thing we've seen is where people have built automation into their journey and their customer journey, then they are being much more successful than those customers that haven't. And the classic example is where an end customer goes into Teams Admin Center, they click on a tile in there, they pick a random tile and they go, right, I want to buy Operator Connect, and they get then taken to the website of the customer of the carrier, and then they either have to fill out a web form or go into some manual journey or have to go to a call center, and the journey stops and the customer experience is terrible. We want to completely, get rid of that, and we want customers to be able to trial services from that first click to trialing services, and our target, and we have been consistent with this, is under 15 minutes. So we have, with one of our partners, we have the ability for end customers to trial Teams Phone Mobile within 15 minutes of clicking and granting some permissions and admin rights to us to allow us to do that. So fully integrated with the IMS core network, with Microsoft, and with the Teams environment. So very, very powerful. And what we're seeing is those customers who are there starting to trial and then leading to paying customers. So we strongly are encouraging everyone to have a chat with us. see what we can do to help them with automation.
And Ian, just a sort of final point on that, I think that was, if we look at Operator Connect primarily, that was the whole premise of the platform, wasn't it? That effectively it would be a seamless automated process that made it easier for end customers to, and that's why our whole event's called Cavell Enable, to enable telephony for those teams users. So I think that piece around automation, not just on the OSS/BS end of the carrier side, but as you said, the actual customer journey piece is the really key pillar to this if we're to really see Teams telephony adoption ramp up.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost, taking it one stage further, it's almost, an inside sales role as well, in that, we are helping our customers facilitate and fulfill their end customers as well. So we're helping them win business, helping them grow, which, benefits the carrier, it benefits, in the instance of Operator Connect Microsoft, it benefits us, but it's platform agnostic. So, if we're migrating from legacy onto current, we can help with that as well. And, the whole journey just needs to be smooth and simple. And by that, it reduces costs and makes it scalable, because obviously margin is being squeezed on a lot of these products as well at the moment. So it's really good, really important. We're seeing a lot of interest in the market. We're onboarding a lot of people at the moment. So it's very positive, and I think the market understands the value of a ubiquitous automation service across multiple platforms.
Yeah, and that's what we'll be expanding on in much greater detail at Cavell Enable on the 3rd of December. All three of you will be in real life attendance at the event.
We will.
For anyone who's interested in more details about Pinco, you can either approach Jason, Ian, Andy in person if you're attending Cavell Enable. You can also use the Hoover app. Which is so if you're on iOS or Android, that's WHOVA, and once you've downloaded it, search for Cavell Enable, and that covers full details on the agenda, all of the attendees list, and you can actually reach out to anyone on that directly. So you can get hold of any of the Pinco team via the Hoover app, or even myself if you wanted to find out about any of that particular Cavell research. So please do leverage that app. For now, though, I don't want you three. I don't want to steal any more of your thunder ahead of Enable next week. So massive thanks for all three of you for appearing on the podcast as a first point.
Thanks, you.
Patrick.
Yeah, thanks for the
Patrick.
time. We'll see you next week.
A pleasure of having you on board. As I said, if you do want to get hold of Pinco, you can either go to pinco.cloud or approach, as I said, Ian, Andy, Jason in person, or via the Hoover Cavell Enable app. There are still some tickets left. So this will be published the week before. As I said, it's taking place in central London on the 3rd of December. So if you're able to make it, there are some last few tickets. And if you head to www.cavell.com/events/enable, you can find all of the tickets there. But for the meantime, again, just a massive thanks to all of the Pinco team for taking part and for being gold sponsor of the event. Thanks to all the listeners for listening, and we'll hope to see you next week at Enable.
Thanks, Patrick.
Cheers. Thanks all.
Thanks.